Now let's discuss that further with Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist joining us from Bristol. Mr. Gosling, it's great to have you with us. The Vatican has often tried to maintain neutrality in global conflicts. What does it tell us about the moral gravity of this war, of this genocide, that even the Holy See is now breaking its usual restraint to condemn Israel's actions?
Well, look, how can any kind of Christian organization see this as trying to be balanced between good and evil? So do they have to have a devil at their church service? No. They should be much more outspoken about what's going on. Of course, they're calling it a war. It's not really a war, it's a slaughter. And he also said the international community is powerless. Well, it's actually not powerless. The international community could be stopping this tomorrow, today, and certainly through the much stronger interventions, going through the General Assembly of the United Nations, for example. And I think what's happened is that the Israelis have got such a stranglehold, particularly on the European powers, through their intelligence networks, through their infiltration. I mean, obviously, I'm sure some of your listeners and viewers know that the Israelis got rid of a government minister who was supportive of Palestine, Alan Duncan, in the last Conservative government. They just got rid of him through infiltration. And so the international community could do a lot more if they would stand up to Israel, the Israel lobby. But they won't, and they don't. Also, I see that Netanyahu is saying that the negotiations won't really start until all the hostages are released. Well, this is not a man that wants to really do a deal, is it? And I don't know what Donald Trump's reaction to that statement is, but he should be condemning Netanyahu there, because, of course, you have to. For example, Netanyahu, he hasn't even released all of the people from the flotilla that were arrested last week. He hasn't released them. It's several of them, including the award-winning journalist Yvonne Ridley, who I know has worked with Press TV a bit over the years, an old friend of mine. She has not been released. She's still in a jail in Israel. In fact, the Scottish government is screaming at Westminster, saying, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you doing anything about the release of Yvonne Ridley? And it's not just her. There's also the two more Scottish people, Jim Hickey and Sid Khan, are also still being held hostage. I use the word hostage by Benjamin Netanyahu and the far-right bloc in Tel Aviv.
Yes, Mr. Gosling, you mentioned that the international community could have stopped this, and it still can stop this if it wants to. Can you walk us through the process of international community finally wanting to do something about this?
Well, there are already several nations, presidents and prime ministers, who have stated their wish for some sort of peacekeeping force in Gaza, some kind of armed intervention through the auspices of the United Nations. And if the veto is abused, the veto is abused repeatedly by the United States in the UN Security Council, it is possible for the General Assembly to vote for something like this. So the efforts, don't ask me, ask the President of Ireland. He is one of the people who is now working, and apparently there's quite a lot going on over in New York behind the scenes in order to get resolutions passed by the General Assembly and introduced to the General Assembly, although, of course, because of the United States and some other countries, these have been blocked so far. So that, it seems to me, is the main way to proceed. But of course, it would help immensely if some of the superpowers like China were to start to, stand up. They seem to be sitting down. And if they were to stand up and to aid an effort for a push for an international vote for a peacekeeping force to protect the people of Gaza, that would be brilliant. I think there's a lot of hype around the Donald Trump Netanyahu so-called deal. Here in the UK over the weekend, we were hearing lies from the BBC, even more lies. Yes, you won't be surprised, but the BBC was saying, oh, Hamas has agreed to release all the hostages. No, it hasn't actually agreed that. It's agreed to have that negotiated on the table, just as it has to negotiate the release of all the Israelis that Hamas are holding. But what they're doing, the media are interfering and lying about what's going on. And this is giving succor to people like Netanyahu to slowly but surely change the deal. So, oh, we're only going to negotiate if all the hostages are released. So what they do is they offer you hope. They offer the people of Gaza hope, and then they undermine it. They undermine it. The idea is here, I think, to use negotiations, as the Americans and the Israelis have been doing with Iran, literally to destroy the peace process. So they talk about peace. Actually, all they really want is more war. That's the way it seems to me.
And my final question, Mr. Gosling, before we let you go. The Vatican's call to halt arms supplies to Israel aligns with growing demands from civil societies worldwide. Do you think that this moral stance signals a broader shift, maybe of tides against Israel, one that could deepen the growing isolation that Israelis are facing right now?
Well, I agree with you. Israel is facing global growing isolation, and slowly but surely these massive elite institutions are very slowly coming on board. For example, with what you say with the Vatican, but of course Catholics, the tens of millions of Catholics in the world, have been calling for this for years. The Vatican has been very slow to kind of move round. And if you look, for example, at the Protestant Church of England and our new Archbishop of Canterbury, in her first speech last week, she didn't mention Gaza. She's only talking about the attack on a synagogue. So what we've got, I'm afraid, is controlled elite institutions, whether it's universities, media, political parties, or even the Church of England, seem to be very reluctant to see what's going on in Gaza as genocide, as even a child can see this. So you can see really, I think, what's been going on over the years. The Israel lobby has been infiltrating, bribing and controlling many of the West's elite institutions. But slowly but surely, even they, and even the Vatican, is having to come round. And one of the most important things about the Trump deal, which wasn't mentioned, I don't think, by the Vatican, was the fact that Netanyahu is still bombing, still killing Gazans day after day after day. And all we're hearing in Britain for the last six days or so is more and more about how terrible it is that a synagogue has been attacked and one person shot by the police, another person killed by some maniac. But actually, of course, that's a terrible thing to happen. But meanwhile, the slaughter in Gaza goes on day after day after day, usually between about 30 or 40 and 100 innocent Gazans are being murdered. And that's, it seems to me, is the real priority, to stop that now.
Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol. Thank you.